What?
Hey, Stephen, if you want to go ahead and make your screen blank and mute, we'll go ahead and start in a few minutes.
What time is it right now?
It's 5:45, but we already have attendees coming in, so I'm going to call you on your phone if you want to go ahead and turn off your camera and mute and change your name to Merlone Geyer.
Doesn't it say Merlone Geyer?
I can't see in my screen.
It says Merlone Geyer down in the corner.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and mute really quick and turn off your camera? I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you. There's a reason, if you can, really quick. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining this evening's forum, our first virtual community forum with Laguna Village at Laguna Hills. We are going to get started in just 2 minutes. We're just giving everyone a chance to log on, and we will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience, and I'll be right back in about 2 minutes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's virtual community forum. For those of you who just logged on, we're just waiting for a few more people to log on. We see that they're trying to get on right now, and then we'll begin shortly. Good evening. Thank you for attending the first of 3 virtual community forums that we will be hosting about the village at Laguna Hills. Tonight, I will be your moderator. My name is Brenda, and I work with Merlone Geyer. This will be the first, as I mentioned. We will be holding 2 other forums on November 10th and December 9th. If you have technical difficulty or have a friend who may be texting you with technical difficulty, please know that we will be posting this presentation next week on the Village at Laguna Hills website, so you will be able to view it, and also we invite you to attend future forums. So for tonight's presentation, here's what you can expect. You'll be hearing from our main presenter this evening. His name is Stephen Logan, Vice President of Development with Merlone Geyer, and he will be introducing you to 2 other people who will be presenting and taking you through the development of this project. We encourage you to learn more about Merlone Geyer by visiting their website. If you have questions, about the company in charge of this project. Stephen will be giving 15 to 20 minutes of presentation. You'll see visuals and he'll give you details about what is taking place at the village at Laguna Hills. Very exciting. We already are seeing some of the questions come through, asking some of these questions about what can be anticipated. You will note that your microphone, camera, and group chat functions are not active. However, at the bottom of your toolbar on Zoom, you will see a Q&A icon. Please feel free throughout the presentation to type your questions in this area, and we will be able to see these questions come through. Once Stephen and his team are finished with his presentation, I will come back and begin to ask the questions that have been sent over to us. We kindly ask that you remember that we will not be reading comments, but we'll be focusing on questions only. Out of respect to everyone's time, we'll be ending this session promptly at 7:30 p.m. If your questions are not addressed, we will do our best to include that in our next forum presentation and also include it in the Q&A forum as some of the lead questions. So without further delay, I will be turning the forum over now to Stephen again with Merlone Geyer.
Brenda, thank you very much, and welcome tonight. We're very excited for you to join us. It's obviously unprecedented times. We'd be preferring to do this in person. To my right is Dave Geiser, Managing Director of Design and Construction. And to my left is Dennis Borowski, who's in charge, is the VP of Leasing for the center. So what we want to do tonight is we're going to give you a brief history. I'm sure most of you know the history. We'll go back from our original approvals, walk through some of those items, talk about the community meeting we had in 2019, in which it was at the mall, talk about, we went to city council, go through some of the outreach we've done. We're going to go through briefly on the site plan, and I'm going to talk about our community outreach, the schedule that we have set forward, and talk about community and economic benefits. I'll then turn it over to Dave. Going to talk to you more about the site plan and how the site plan orientates, walk through some imagery of the site, and when he's finished, we'll turn it over to Dennis. He'll tell you about the retail activity we're seeing out there and the type of tenants that we'll be targeting moving forward. And then at the end, we'll give a brief wrap up. And as Brenda mentioned, we will go through a Q&A. So as you're aware, in March of 2016, we had approvals to build 988 residential units and about 950,000 feet of retail. In 2017, Macy's came to us and asked that, with this location, as well as Irvine Spectrum, that they wanted to close those locations. And as you're aware, that made us stop construction on the site and reevaluate what the potential site is moving forward. With that, we started looking at ways in order to reuse the Macy's site. We looked at ways to reuse the existing mall site moving forward. And then during that point in time, when we were trying to figure out new uses and the retail dynamic was changing, JCPenney had come to us and asked that they'd no longer be on site. So what that had done is that it had unencumbered the entire site because Macy's and JCPenney had site plan control over the site for what we were doing moving forward. And once those uses went away, we then went back and put together a plan that we unveiled to the community back in April of 2019, in which about 400 people showed up to that meeting. In that plan we unveiled was roughly 250,000 feet of retail, 860,000 feet of office, a hotel, and about 2,100 apartment units. And going through and talking to the community members, they thought it was just too robust of a plan, in which it didn't, lend back to the community and what we thought of. Back in 2019, we unveiled a plan to City Council that showed what you see on site today. It had more ranges on it, but today and Dave will talk a little bit further on the orientation. But today, the site plan currently shows about 250,000 feet of retail facing El Toro with some restaurant pads, the existing In-N-Out, King's Fish House, as well as BJ's. It shows a 2.5 to 3 acre village park in the center, and we'll talk about that in much more greater detail. It orientates the office up towards Interstate 5, and which has about 350,000 cars a day along it. And then we cut the residential down to about 1,500 units. So we took away 600 units of the residential, and the office is now 465,000 feet. And what we'll get into on this site plan is, B and C malls throughout the United States, given, we're in that pandemic, has changed dramatically. And we believe we're ahead of the curve on trying to recreate an atmosphere for the community in which, will drive community, benefits moving forward, and something that the community can be proud of as a town center with City Hall across the street. And so just briefly, we'll talk about some of the community meetings. We went to, like I mentioned, in April 2019, we met with the group Future of Laguna Hills Advisory Group a couple of times in 19. We presented the City Council in November 19, as well as our application. We're currently going through the CEQA application documents with the city. And most recently, we met with the Economic Advisory Committee for South Orange County. We met with the Laguna Hills Chamber of Commerce. We have community forum meetings, one tonight, one November 10th, and one on December 9th. We have been outreaching to other key stakeholders within the community to have further presentations. And then our goal is to have a presentation to City Council in January 2021. Really quickly on project phasing and schedule. We're going to the City Council in January 21. From that, we plan to begin construction documents, plan checking. We have a map to take care of and permits. We believe that's going to take us roughly 18 to 24 months. We believe we'll start construction in November of 22 to January of 2023. And we believe the construction and completion of the retail, village, and hotel is around the end of November 25, early January 26. Construction completion on the residential, we believe there's roughly about 550 units that'll be done in April 26. And one of the things, when you look at the plan, and we can talk further about this, is this site plan cannot absorb all the residential at once. We believe this is probably, a 10 to 15 year project, depending on market conditions. And so this project is going to be built in phases over a period of time. And as I mentioned there, the office construction will be market driven moving forward. Phase 2 will begin with documents and, while we're under construction of the existing retail and hotel, and then that would commence after the first phase is completed. We would then commence about another 50 to 75,000 square feet of retail and begin another 300 to 700 residential units. We believe that'll take us to around January of 2029. And then the construction completion on the residential will be about, April 26th. That's not it, April of 29. So one of the things we want to talk about is community and economic benefits. As I mentioned, we have a village park of 2.5 acres that sits in the middle of the heart of the project, that's flanked by the theater and by the hotel. We believe this village park is going to have community and city organized events for like 5K, music concerts in the amphitheater, farmers markets. Those are just to say a few, and we'd be love to work with the community to move forward on those types of events with the city and the community. The project's going to drive, TOT tax from the hotel, which will go into the city's general fund, along with increased property taxes, increased sales taxes. One of the biggest things I want to talk about are these Quimby and Park fees, in which are established, per each door of the apartments. And basically what these Quimby and Park fees allow the city to do is to use these fees for the community and for upgrading and keeping parks and upgraded, so that they don't have to use funds from the general fund in order to fund those, so that those funds can go elsewhere within the city. And so this plan will also have construction jobs as well as permanent jobs. We've heard from some people in the chamber that people want some place for new offices and some place for some new retail. So with that, I will turn it over to Dave to talk about the orientation of the site plan, and then Dennis will talk about the retail, and then we'll answer some questions.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. My name is Dave Geiser. I'm the Managing Director for Design and Construction for Malone Geyer Partners. I've been involved with the project since our acquisition back in 2013, our original plans. So I'm ultimately intimately familiar with the surroundings, the site, the infrastructure in and around the site, and led our team of 3 architects in developing this latest plan. We hired MCG architects to handle the retail component in the hotel. Gensler Architects has been architect for the office component, and Architects Orange has been the architect for not only the residential, but also the mixed-use building that we have here at the northwest corner of the site. As Stephen explained, the site is generally organized to allow the office buildings to be up along the freeway for the visibility that they need and desire, with future parking structures to be built as demand requires. One of these structures will be a joint use structure between the retail and the office uses. We located the park here in the very center of our site so that it can be used as an amenity, not only by the hotel, but by people using the retail in the site, by the residents that will be living here on site, and also by the office workers. And most importantly, by the community. This is not a private park, it's public, it's open 24/7, and is intended and purposed to be used by the community as well. And we'll go into what amenities are provided here when we get to those slides. So the retail is oriented towards El Toro Road, as Steve mentioned, both In and Out, Kingfish's remain, as well as BJ's. We have room for additional retail and food pads. Dennis will talk about potential tenancy and uses for those. In addition to relocating the Nordstrom Rack to this Anchor 1 building, so they'll occupy and be relocated from where they are now in this area here around Residential 1 up to Anchor 1. We've got room for another anchor tenant next to them on the ground floor. And then up above this main building is our 10 to 12 screen theater that will have signage on El Toro Road, but will open back towards the park. And we'll look at some renderings of how that exactly works. Surrounding our park will be ground floor retail shops for shop space, restaurants, etc. Those will also be located under the hotel. We'll see some renderings of that in a second. So that, again, we have retail surrounding the park and also underneath the mixed-use building here under the residential. Then we have room for more major retail here under our mixed-use building, again, facing El Toro Road, to bring our total retail on site to potentially up to 250,000 square feet of retail. And again, the residential units have been designed in blocks of 5 acres, so they comply with the urban village specific plan with their density. We've also been working with the planning department and consultant Placeworks over the last few months, well, actually all summer long and even prior to that, to really refine our plan to make sure that it not only complies with the urban village specific plan relating to street sections and landscaping and design guidelines, fixtures, furnishings, etc., but also trying to create that town village environment where not only do we see a main street coming off of El Toro through the site that has parking available, bifurcated planters and walks for pedestrians and bike paths, really all the way through the site. We've designed the site as a network of streets to create a grid that's integrated into the surrounding neighborhoods. The Saddleback College here to the west, the Oak Brook development to the south, and the transit center located here on the southwest corner of our site, not to mention Town Hall out across the street and other various retail across the street as well. Go to the next slide. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to take you, here you go. So we're going to take you through a series of renderings around the site, and I'll help you guide where we're looking from so you can, some of it's quite self-evident, but I'll help you out. So we have the I-5 freeway here on the left-hand side with the freeway facing office buildings up against the freeway. These are 4-story buildings. We'll see a little bit more, and I'll talk about the architecture of those buildings. We still see In-N-Out Burger on the front corner with the Kingfish. And then in the center of the site, there's our 2-story large retail building with the ground floor Nordstrom Rack, the large format retailer next door, and the cinema up above. Next to that, on the east side, there's a parking structure that will be built between the office building and the retail to house not only parking for the office buildings, but also for the theater parking. And then over on the far right-hand side, we see the mixed-use residential building with ground floor retail facing El Toro, forming the west end of our Main Street. And also in the center of the plan, we see the hotel and the park there in the middle of the site. Next slide. Here's the freeway view. This is I-5 looking into the project. Here we have our 4 office buildings, again, about 4 stories in height. And these buildings are meant to be either all leased to one major tenant. They can be broken up floor by floor or building by building. Those will be driven by a market demand. Next slide. So here we are looking east. On below us directly is the Saddleback Hospital. And we see, again, the residential buildings on the west side of the site in the foreground. We see the large park in front of us. We see on the left-hand side, we see the movie theater with its grand covered opening stepping down into the park. And we'll talk about amenities there in a minute. And again, we see the office buildings in the distance and the residential buildings to the right. One of the things that we spent a lot of time on during the review process with not only the planning department, David Chantaransu and his team, but also with PlaceWorks, was the design of these residential buildings. And what we've done is we've created, these are called wrap products. So there's interior parking structures. So you have to drive into the parking structure, you drive up to the floor that you live on, and you access your unit from that parking floor. And then from there you walk out to your unit. But instead of having just a flat facade on all 4 sides, what we've done is we've created courtyards that face the main pedestrian walkways. So not only does that provide outdoor amenity space for the residents, but also provides relief for pedestrians that are walking through the project. Small parklets are open to the public, and again, just provide a nicer, amenitized, but also visually appealing atmosphere in the center. In the upper right-hand corner, that would be the southeast corner of the site, we have preserved that area for community events. We heard loud and clear from the community that you want to keep the pumpkin patch, want to keep Christmas trees, want to keep the park and ride, farmers markets, etc. So we've left that space available as like a flex space to handle those events, whatever other community events, and whatever other events that the city or community groups are interested in holding there. We know that the park and ride still uses that. So that's why we have protect. When we decrease the amount of residential units, we have the opportunity to create this space for the community there in the corner. Next slide. This is the view looking to the south. Again, you see the the retail in front with a large theater up on top. You see the hotel and park at the middle of the site, and again surrounded by the Main Street and retail. So coming off of El Toro Road, I want to direct your view there where the cursor is now. So we've straightened out this road from what it is today. And this is going to be the entrance to the project off of El Toro at the signal to be our Main Street. And so if you go to that slide, we'll drop down into the picture there. So this is the view looking into the site as we come up through the light. Again, you see the major tenants on the ground floor, the theater up above, the contemporary design. We're borrowing from an agrarian and a contemporary type of look, using a lot of natural materials, stones, woods, metals, plaster, a lot of color. Because these buildings, there is no, in a typical retail center, you'll find a back of a building where the loading takes place and where no one goes essentially. Because the design of all of these buildings don't have a back. We've had design in great detail all of the building elevations. So as we go through here, you'll see that there are no backs. We've had to work closely with planning and our architects to hide the loading with roll-up doors that conceal them from just open loading activities. And we'll see that through the center. But the idea is, again, we don't have a back of a building here. It's a true a village and a downtown that it's going to promote walking everywhere. Next slide. So here I've walked into Main Street. I've got the park on my left. I've got my ground floor retail to my right with a residential up above. I've got the beginning of my residential streets happening in the distance. Again, looking at the residential buildings here, we've got a high level of design using stones and woods and metals and colors and a lot of relief to these buildings with balconies and the whole idea here is not to have institutionalized looking buildings, but also each one of the residential buildings has a character of its own, so that so that it does look like it will happen, like these were built over time and not just cookie cuttered out all at once. That's fine. So now I'm looking at the hotel. The hotel has been designed, again, with ground floor retail facing the park. You enter off of Main Street. That's where the porte cochere is. But the design of the hotel is such that it has a U shape facing the plaza, so that the amenity deck is actually up on the second floor. So they actually look out over the park. And so one, it offers better views for the units, but also it was key for the office users to have a hotel nearby. And it's also proximate to the Saddleback Hospital, which has a demand for hotel rooms as well as the community. Having a really nice hotel in your community, we see this as being a boutique style hotel, something like a Kimpton, I guess, would be a good example for the quality of the hotel. And again, we start to see the park in the foreground. We see the amphitheater there in the middle, the tot lot behind it, the kiosks, the areas to recreate. And again, we'll have some more slides too. We've got shop buildings there with outdoor dining. So sit and relax and enjoy the park while you're there as well. Here's a view from the park, looking back to the hotel. Again, there's seating areas, there's play areas, there's concert areas. There's a dry creek bed that we're using for water quality during the wet months. So it'll be wet during different parts of the year, with certain spots that will be designated to have water in them for kids' activities and to play and touch and feel. Been working with our landscape architect, Urban Arena, who's just fantastic, creating these wonderful outdoor spaces. And again, you'll see our amphitheater over there on the left, where we can program concert series, or just a nice place to go have lunch when there's not a lot of other activities going on. Next. So this is our office layout up against the 5 freeway. The buildings have been designed in such a way to create an outdoor amenitized area outside at the ground floor. So instead of just a parking lot leading up to the buildings, this is intended to be a connected path through the rest of the paths that go through the village, intended not only for the residents, but for the community to use as outdoor spaces. It's highly amenitized. There are some outdoor rooms for the office buildings as breakout rooms, which they desire, but a lot of this is just open space for the community. We have over 10 acres of open space in this project. Next slide. So this is a view then of that building from the open space here. And again, working with a landscape architect on plant materials and pallets that are consistent with the urban village specific plan, but also the design of the office building is such that it's not just all glass. We're using, again, a lot of the metals and woods that we're seeing consistent on the residential and retail designs, also using masonry facades as well to soften the buildings. And again, with a high use of balconies to promote that indoor-outdoor use from the office user as well. There's a view then looking from the buildings down towards that amenity space as well. We see, and then we see the other office campus, and this is the quality of design that we're promoting for the whole village, actually. So a little bit about landscape. Again, this was I'm not going to go through all the plant materials, but again, working with the city and PlaceWorks and their landscape architect to make sure that all of our design met all the requirements of the urban village specific plan related to shading and fixtures and furnishings and open space, pedestrian walkways, and also all the tree plantings that are important for consistency through the urban village itself. So now let's talk a little bit quickly about the park. What we have at the center of our park is an amphitheater that we see programmed for community events, and also a large active green space that not only can house people to watch the different events, but also when it's not being programmed, this space is designed to feel comfortable whether there's 15 or 20 people in the entire park, or 200 or 2,000. There's 2.5 acres of open space here, a total of 3 acres overall. We can close off certain streets at times for street fairs, but there's just a lot to do in the park, not only from top lots that you'll see, but also we have a dog park that's divided between large dogs and small parks. We've done this successfully before in other locations, and we find that this is a strong attraction not only for the people that live in the project, but as a destination for people in the community to come to, walk, get to know their neighbors, interact. It's just a great hangout space for the community. And again, you see where we climb up through the escalators and elevators up to the theater. So this will also further be activated by everybody coming and going to the theater in the evenings and weekends. Outdoor dining spaces provided for the shops for them to have outdoor tables and chairs and lights. And again, the dry creek bed that runs the middle of the site, which will be dry during the summer, but active. We'll actually use it to treat the water that hits the ground here. So we actively promote our low impact development and sustainability by treating the water. And by the way, that happens all through the site. All of the 10 acres of landscape are meant to be for treatment of water. And then we have on either side, we create our wet areas of that river feature down at each corner here for the kids to enjoy, and just a place to reach out and touch the water. Next slide. So this is a view of that again from up above. So I'm looking at the theater on the left and the entrance to its outdoor pavilions up above, but how that helps activate the park. You get a sense of scale here now when you see people and how big these areas are. Dog park on the left, amphitheater kind of in the middle to your right. And the lush, we're expecting that, be really a lush landscape here, and just a really wonderful place for the community to call home for community events. I think that about sums it up. And if you have any questions, please turn those in, and we'll get to those shortly. And so back to you, Steve.
All right, Dennis, I'll turn it over to Dennis to talk about the retail market and where we're headed, and just some observations and maybe some tenants that we've been chatting with moving forward.
Good evening, everyone. Dennis Borowski, employee of Merlot Geyer Partners, and I'm a VP of leasing. And we handle, several properties within our portfolio. For all of our centers, we do our leasing efforts in-house with our leasing group. I've been at the company for a little over 5 years. Have spent quite a bit of time, probably over the last 30 years, working in the Orange County market in both brokerage and retail, shopping center development. Most recently, prior to Merlot Geyer, I was with the Irvine Company and worked on many of their centers, in particular the Marketplace in Tustin and Irvine for a number of years. Other properties like Crystal Cove Promenade and Corona Del Mar Plaza. Prior to that, I was at a company called West Trust, where we redeveloped the Orchard at Saddleback. So off of El Toro Road, directly across the freeway, and did a lot of the leasing at that property as well. And I've got some experience in Mission Viejo and Dana Point and all, the local community. So that's the background. And, we're doing another mixed use project like this in North Hollywood. It's called Novo West. And not to, spend any time on that, but it's just something that we've been working on that we can now slide right into a center like this. And it's, in a way comparable. So the state of retail is, has been challenged lately, obviously with the coronavirus and, other factors, retail has kind of gone upside down. We've got a lot to consider as we move forward with this center and what it will take to create a great environment and bring the right tenants, the right retailers, the right restaurants. We think that, with the retail's been impacted in a lot of ways, starting with the internet. It's really forced retailers to kind of rethink how they do their business and moving forward with what it'll take to continue to be successful. Companies like Amazon have changed the way a lot of people shop. They do a lot of delivery services, even and then there's food uses that do delivery. So we're taking all this into consideration. What happens within each trade area is we have to evaluate, what retailers are already in the market. And, many of the retailers that are prominent out there in today's world are somewhere in Orange County. So we have prominent, regional centers within our trade area, whether it be South Coast Plaza, Fashion Island, Irvine Spectrum, and the shops at Mission Viejo. So in a way, we're kind of surrounded by big retail projects. And with that comes a lot of those retailers that many of which we would love to have at our project, but there's just not enough of them to go around. Many of them have one store or two stores in the trade area, and some are also restricted with radius clauses within their leases that prohibit them from going to other nearby properties. So as we go forward with this project, we will have a mixed use development here. So what that does is that creates built-in customers, if you will. As this project evolves and gets built out, we'll have residents that live on site. We'll have office employees that work on site. We'll have hotel guests that will be staying overnight and staying at the property. So we have built-in customers, and that's a very nice thing to have from a local standpoint. And then from a regional standpoint, we're at one of the busier intersections in Orange County at El Toro and the 5. So we'll be pulling customers off the freeway. People will be able to come to our retail project and shop and visit our movie theaters, visit our restaurants and our other retail stores.
And the existing residents, are going to be key to this as well.
I thought I mentioned, existing residents that live on site will be able to walk into the retail, walk to the restaurants, and be able to utilize the park and the restaurants and the coffee house and everything that comes with a quality retail development.
And all the residents that live adjacent to the site within Laguna Hills will be
Absolutely
here too.
That's right. So some of the uses that we're targeting, Dave mentioned movie theaters. We're dedicating the second floor of the large building to a luxury movie house. Obviously, there's several retailers, several movie cinema type operators out there that are in the market. We've received a lot of interest already, and I've been working on this project for almost 5 years. We were doing pre-leasing when we took the first go round with the former plan, and we've been able to work through and work with a lot of people to see who's interested, who's available, and who may be able to move forward. So movie theater operators are available. Fitness is another use, whether it's a large fitness club or whether it's a variety of smaller users to sprinkle throughout the project. We'll see to that as we go through this over time. Nordstrom Rack is an existing tenant of ours that's on site. They've expressed interest and they have a lease, so they would like to be here long term, and it's our intention to reposition them within the center. They would remain open until we built the new building, and then they would be able to be relocated to the new location. Other complementary retailers, such as stores like Nike or Sephora, just to name examples of the type of retailers that we could attract here. And those are some of the larger users. Then we get into some of the smaller shops, the Lululemons of the world and other soft goods and apparel and shoe and jewelry, your traditional retailers. And we'll be looking to go as upscale as possible. We want this to be a really nice project with upscale quality merchants and variety of sizes, both branded, regional and national chains, as well as independent local operators with a variety of sizes and uses. Restaurants, so full service restaurants for starters. We already have BJ's and we have King's Fish House. Pads 1 and Pad 2 would likely go to full service restaurants as well. So we expect full service restaurants along El Toro Road, as well as we have additional space in the plaza or in the Village Park area around the park where full service restaurants or fast casual format restaurants could be positioned. And when we get into fast casual, that would include coffee shops, a burger style restaurant, farm to table type of concepts, dessert, whether it be baked goods or ice cream or frozen yogurts, and all a variety of different ethnic categories from Mexican to Asian to Mediterranean. So retail will be built in 2 phases. Phase 1 being the big anchor building with the theater and the shop buildings around the Village Park. And then when the Nordstrom is relocated or repositioned, then the new building with the residential will get built in a second phase. And with that comes additional retail on the ground floor. So we'll be able to kind of plan as we go and hopefully attract, nice retailers for both sides of the project. Dave mentioned the hotel earlier, and, we expect it to be a branded type of product there, upscale in nature, and, a popular name and an upscale type of store or type of operation. So right now we're early in the process. We spent quite a bit of time in the past marketing and leasing. Now with the new plan, we've taken time off. We're going back into it. Once approved, we'll dig deep and really go out to market and talk to everybody that's available and see what we can do to create the best mix possible.
All right, thanks, Dennis. And so how we want to end this tonight is to show you a quick video.
While Stephen is going ahead and getting that video loaded, I just want to let everyone know we have about 25 questions that have come in so far. And at the conclusion of the video, we'll launch into the Q&A time. Stephen, it's not showing.
It's on.
No.
Share screen, stop screen, so I go back.
Yeah. There you go.
Sorry about that.
Here you go. It's showing right now. Great. So Stephen, I'm not sure if you want to go ahead and we can always just move to the site plan. People are asking if there are renderings available, and I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that they can go to the village at Laguna Hills under development, and you'll be able to see the renderings. We have quite a bit of questions right now about residential. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that. Thank you to everyone who have asked the questions. If I don't actually use your exact wording, please know it's because multiple people might have asked the same question. So one of the biggest questions is what type of residential homes are these? Condos, apartments, townhomes? Are you considering low income, senior homes? And how tall will these buildings be?
So, when we've been out, talking to different groups, and, currently they're slated to be apartments, but we've had a lot of senior housing people contact us about doing that. We've also heard from some people about some townhomes that could be here, which we can do all different types as needed. It's going to be market driven here. And so the current zoning allows for 75 feet for the height of the residential buildings. And so we're currently close to about 75 feet on some of the buildings. Some of the buildings are actually smaller, but so
How many floors?
Well, do you want to talk about your inclusionary housing?
So on the inclusionary housing, we're going to have an affordable component here. we're still working that out. But yes, there will be an affordability component on site for, you know, seniors, veterans, you know, moderate low income housing on site. And so we're addressing that now with the city as we move forward through the plan.
Great. Chris Mack has a question regarding parking. Where are the parking spots for residential, and have you taken into account the amount of people living in each home so that there is enough space for all cars? I believe you went through the parking, the first part about the parking spots. We did have some people tuning in a little later, so I don't know if you want to pull that up and just kind of go through that one more time.
Can you see our screen right now? Can you see our site plan?
No, the site plan's not up. You'll need to share your screen.
Okay, let's do that first.
See it now?
Yes.
Okay, so along the western border of the site in the residential here, and then the other 2 blocks of residential, the gray square in the middle is representative of the parking structure. And so these parking structures go as tall as the buildings, 5 to 7 stories. And so all the residents will park inside that structure that you will be hidden. You won't see it from outside. That'll be surrounded by the units themselves that are shown in blue with the courtyards. And all of the parking is typically parked at either 1.5 to 1.75 spaces per unit. So there'll be plenty of parking, not only for the residents themselves, but also for guests. Again, all located within those parking structures. In addition, the streets that we've set up, most of them have on-street parking, but that's anticipated to be for the retail and for community events. So all the parking, ample parking located within the parking structures within each individual building.
Great, thank you, Dave. Can you also speak to the public park? Robin Yoakum is asking the question, in addition to the public park, will residents have their own private parks, not pool area for children, etc.? If yes, how much park space will be dedicated to residentials 1, 2, 3, etc.? If no, would you consider a larger park?
So yes, the residential units all meet the open space requirement for private open space for those individual units. And yes, some of those include ground floor pools, barbecue areas, parklets. Also, on top of some of these units, or can be programmed in all of these units, our rooftop, on top of the parking structures, we do an amenity deck up on top of those, on like a portion of the parking structure that allows for cabanas, pools. It offers great views, sun up there. So all of the units will have plenty of private space, as well as open space around the building themselves for public to enjoy.
And as we work with the residential developers, as you see some, as Dave mentioned, you see some of these fingers that pop out with some of these courtyards. As you know, those areas could be programmed for you know, kids in these areas as the residential developer sees fit. You know, this park roughly, if you take, you know, with the shops, and it's closer to three acres. We always talk about 2.5 acres with the open spot. There is a tot lot in the area back here that for kids in order to play with their parents, as well as Dave mentions the dog park there.
So also I would mention, now that we're talking about it, in between residential units 3 and 4 here, this is a closed off pedestrian zone here through the middle of these units, and programmed off of this, the private space comes only so far, but then on either side of that is also programmed public space walking through that pedestrian zone as well. Here off between residential units 4 and 5, we have a community garden. So what this is envisioned to be these are outdoor plots. You can sign up for those. You can grow your veggies there. We have shaded structures and storage and community boards. It's a fenced area, but again, community gardens in those areas as well. So we'll work on programming exactly as we move forward, but we certainly have plenty of area allowed for the public, the community at large, and for the residences who live here.
Hope that answers your question, Robin.
Great. And then Deborah Hernandez has expressed a concern about affordable housing. Can you speak to that again?
So, you know, we are working with the city on inclusionary requirement for the site, and it's, you know, it's focused on low and moderate house, you know, today it's on low and moderate housing. And so we're working with the city on finalizing that. But yeah, there will be an affordable component to the housing on site.
Great. And Claudia Mueller asked the question, will the residential buildings be so tall that they cast large shadows in around the surface areas surrounding the walking areas and into the apartments themselves?
No, and that's the, yes, there will be shadows cast, but as the units are located to the south and to the west side of the plan, the idea is that, and with the courtyards that are open as well, there will be obviously times of the day where the courtyards will be more in sun than in shade, and vice versa. But we think that with the sun passing over and trying out that the orientation of the courtyards and buildings themselves are such to take advantage of the plenty of sun opportunities, and that park will always be in the sun as well. So when you have four-sided design, there will be areas that are sunnier and some areas that'll be shadier depending on the time of the day.
And then Susan Liu asked, are you sure that people are going to want to live directly across from the hospital? And are you planning on these being rentals or condos?
So, you know, that's an interesting comment, because we have met with Saddleback a few times, and they actually like, you know, some of the units across the street for potential, you know, rent for their employees, or, you know, for some of the doctors or areas there. We haven't finalized any of that information yet, but we think that, you know, where the residential sits and the activity to, you know, the rest of the site plan, into the village park and to the walkways and all of that, we think people will want to live there.
Great. And then Chris Mack expressed a concern about the size of the park with so much residential. Was there consideration in making the park bigger?
So the park has been made bigger. Where the dog park sits today was at one point another building. Where we had a shop on this part, we had another building located here. In working with the city, we've taken both of those buildings out and pushed the shops out and under these buildings to expand the park itself. So the park has grown quite a bit, and with additional amenities added to it, we believe that this park is really a great size, not only for the community and community events, but also for the residents here. This is a large park.
And in our original entitlements, the park was roughly 1 acre, and this is, you know,
2.5.
Now it's 2.5 acres. So yeah, we've enlarged that, and when we met back in April, that was a concern, and so we tried to expand the size of the
Right.
park.
Yeah. The previous park that was in our previous park in our previous design was about 1 acre. So this is about 2.5 size a time. In addition to all the outdoor space we've added in between the office, and not only that, but also the increased size of the courtyard. So again, over 10 acres of open space in the project.
I think we've been able to answer a lot of the residential, and so some of the questions have been coming in about the park. So let's go ahead and lean into that vein of questions. So Chris Mack has a question. Will you have real grass in the park?
That's a good question. We won't have real grass in the dog park. That will be a synthetic material, just because we have found, we actually had real grass in a previous dog park we had, it just gets killed immediately and trampled. So we'll use synthetic grass there. We do have, in a project we have up in Mountain View right now, we do have real grass in our park. The question comes down to sustainability. Do we want to be watering and maintain that much lawn area? It's a toss up. There's a line of thought that people like real grass and to sit outside, and so I think at this point we're open as drawn today. That village park in the middle is real grass, and the dog park is synthetic. So that's where we're at today.
Okay, great. Susan Liu had a question. What kind of concert can you have in a park of that size?
You could have like Saturday, you know, call it Saturday afternoon. You could have a jazz, you know, someone playing jazz, or a small band that plays in that park. I mean, we think this village park can sit, you know, feels comfortable with 10 people or up to 1,500 people. So you can bring your lawn chair, sit on the amphitheater, you know, listen to the park. Also, there is a screen on the building over here. What we plan to do is if there was like the Super Bowl or a, you know, soccer game or a baseball game or the World Series, where you could have the vendors and the restaurants, you know, potentially block this area off. You can have them, you know, give food to all the, you know, the community that wants to be here
And promote the event. The idea is to
Correct.
have community events that can be promoted by the retail tenants that are here and by groups that could actually use the space, private groups that want to rent out certain areas and hold their specific event. But in terms of what kind of a concert, this isn't the Rolling Stones. What we're talking about is, you know, a small band, acoustic guitar, you know, a theater if someone wants to put on a certain event, or even have a rally. If we're, you know, we're in a certain time of year where people are having outdoor rallies and community events, that's what this is programmable for and the right size for.
She has a follow-up question to that. If the park is being used for an event and the movies are accessed from the park, will that be a problem?
We don't think so, because it's all pedestrian related. You don't get to the park until you reach the edge of the park. The parking structure that's located on the freeway side of the park is meant to be a shared parking structure between the office and the retail and event parking. It's close proximity to the park, offers for convenient and access to the park. So no, having theaters that release at different times and start at different times, coinciding with an event at the park, actually I think probably adds to the dynamic quality of the event that's going on. We think the more people, the better. We can close off certain parts of the street, like between the hotel and the park. If we had a large event that we felt that we needed to close part of the street off, we can still offer car circulation around the park, but close off certain streets to car traffic if the event required that, or if we wanted to do that for an event.
Great. Another parking question and follow up to the dog park grass being synthetic. The question is from Chris Mack. If the dog park grass is synthetic, will you allow dogs to do their business there?
Yes, and so you can't help that. Dogs will do what they do. What we have is we have cleanup stations posted around the park. We strongly, you know, obviously what we have found is that other dog owners will enforce those rules themselves upon the people that they see there. This isn't one person going to the dog park and using it by themselves. The dog park we have in Mountain View for about the same size project, it is utilized sun up to sundown and even into the night. There's lights there, and there's always at least 5 to 25 dogs in the park, and the owners police it themselves. In addition to that, we hire a service that comes and actually cleans the park a couple times a week to make sure that, you know, we're being a safe place for people to bring their animals. And so it's a well-maintained and run park. This isn't just a free-for-all. A good thing to point here, we will have active on-site property management and security on this project full-time. This is not just a park that's open to everyone to do what they want. There will be security, there will be active management on the park 24/7.
Okay, and just a friendly reminder to people submitting questions. I'm getting some comments and statements, but we're at this point just focusing on questions. So if you could please word your questions as such, that would be very helpful for us. So I think we've cleared up a lot of the park and residential questions. There are a few floating in some of the multi-questions requests. So I'm going to kind of go through some of this and try not to jump around too much. But Mario has a question as we wrap up the park. Will there be a play area for the children? I believe you mentioned a tot. And also, why not make the park larger for more interactive space? And then he has another follow-up on that question. Lastly, if market doesn't improve for office buildings, will you try to increase more residential buildings?
Let's take the park question first. So right now, with the amphitheater in the middle of the park, this entire area behind the amphitheater here, which is probably somewhere in the area of about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, is dedicated to the top lot. And so this whole area is dedicated to playground, equipment, and children's area. This whole area here is the dog park, large dog parks on this side, small dog parks here, seating area in the middle, fenced landscape around there. We have outdoor fire pits and seating areas throughout the park for quiet enjoyment. We have this regular park area. We have retail kiosks spread out to the park. In addition to the large open park area, we've got these boardwalks that connect through the park and remember, these are going to be shops, outdoor shops with potential outdoor dining and retail opportunities here and wrapping around this area too. So all of this will be outdoor dining and other amenitized areas that the retail tenants will share. You see restaurant seating also located here. So again, highly amenitized for whatever your desire is to do, whether it's to sit quietly and read, play in the water, play with your dog, play with your kids, listen to music or hang out on the grass, enjoy the retail shops. All those amenities are here in this 2.5 acre park.
And then to answer your question on the office to residential, the answer is no.
Nope, yeah. Office won't be replaced with residential.
Office is where office is.
Okay, great. We're gonna be kind of popcorning a little bit just because of the way that the questions are coming in. There is a question about a high rise. Can you speak to the height of the office building? I believe you said it was 4-story. And if you can speak to whether or not that's a high rise or not, and then what type of businesses are you trying to get in that facility?
So office at 4 stories is not high rise. High rise happens at 6 stories and higher. We're going to be at 13 feet floor to floor, probably a little higher on the ground floor, maybe going to 18 feet. So add that up, we're somewhere in the 60 to 70 foot range on the office, but 4 stories in height, not high rise.
And to piggyback on that, as going through, we wanted to stay within the specific plan and the general plan, so we are not amending either one of those the city documents. And there is a height limit in that, so we have respected that.
Yeah, good point. The height maximum in the urban village specific plan is 75 feet, and we're not going past that.
Okay, great. And then what kind of businesses are you trying to attract in that space?
So, we've been out to the market looking around at different tech tenants, lifestyle, life sciences is a big tenant that's expanding quite rapidly given where we're at today. It could be a big office user. It could be somebody that, what we've seen in the marketplace is that because South Orange County and is much more affordable than north of it, that a lot of talent seems to be going south. So we're seeing that, people want to expand down south. So we haven't taken exact office tenant yet, but we have hired CBRE, who is one of the largest office brokers in the world, and they track all of the Fortune 500 companies as well as other companies that want to expand within Orange County. And so we will do an active search in order to find the right tenant for that area.
Great. Well, I just want to call attention to the panelists that we have about a little over 25 minutes left of our time, and we have 28 questions to answer. So I'm going to combine a few if you want to just keep that into consideration. So a few people, I'm going to combine a few questions from a few people. They're asking, why would residents want to use this community area versus the city's community center and park? And also, how are you going to keep the homeless from taking over the park areas?
Well, I'll go to the homeless. Again, like we indicated before, there's on-site property management and security on-site. So that's how we will address the homeless situation and any crime situation as well. It also should be noticed that the residential blocks, the units there, will also have their on-site property management there. So there's plenty of eyes on the park, if you will. We also find that by having residential units and hotel units looking out over the park and through the courtyards and the rest of the center, those eyes on and the 24-hour nature of a village development like this really helps keep down crime, because people are up, people are coming and going throughout the night. And with a lot of streets, there's no alleys, there's no back of house. You really have an active eyes on center that greatly helps reduce the crime. In terms of why would people want to come here, just for the the highly amenitized areas, this is going to be a nice park. People are going to want to come here, not just the people who live here, but the community at large. If you're, we see a lot of families coming here during the day with their kids, during the week and on weekends. Let's go to the park. There's going to be playground equipment. There's going to be water and fountain to play in. There's going to be places to run around on the grass. You're going to send amenities such as your dog and the shopping that goes along with it. I'm going to get a coffee. I'm going to go grab a bite to eat and go sit out on the lawn. I'm just going to go shopping in general. I'm going to go to the grocery store and then go to the park. So that we see this as a highly desirable and amenitized feature for the community and the residents. It will be greatly used.
And to answer your question about community area, it's kind of a different animal. You know, it's a much larger park, and this is a little, you know, even though it's still 2.5 acres, it'll be a little bit more intimate. But as Dave mentioned, it'll be a place that, you know, you go with your kids and meet other families and grab food and let them run around and just, you know, it will be nice.
And all of these pictures surrounding this park that's on the screen now are representative of the scale that we're talking about. There are areas to sit around a fire pit. There are areas to sit next to our creek bed that runs the site. There is room for hundreds of people to come bring their blankets and sit and watch a movie night or sit around, watch a concert. These images are to scale for this size of a park.
Great. We had somebody ask a question about, can you please make this more human scale? But I think you just answered that question. So thank you, Dave. I'm going to keep us moving along. We have quite a bit of questions about traffic. And before we get there, though, I do want to ask a few questions that have come in early on so we can honor the people who got their questions in early. But those who are wondering about traffic know that we are going to be answering that. So keeping the time in mind, I want to say that Chris Mack from asked about how do you join the Laguna Hills Advisory Group, or it's LH Advisory Group? Who decides who is a part of this?
We can get you that information and be more than happy. We can reach out to their group and get you their information and forward that on to you.
Great. He has another question as well. And thank you, Chris, for getting your questions in early. And I want to honor that. How much say does the city council have on this? And how about the community?
So the city council, obviously, you know, when you take the plan moving forward, as we mentioned, you know, we've tried to keep within the general plan and the specific plan. So, I mean, the city council can, you know, they can vote on and give feedback to what maybe certain things need to change. In the community, we recommend that you come to city council and express your desires, pro or con, because I think the community voice needs to be heard, and it'll help the city council determine, what the best project is to move forward.
And that's why we're having these meetings here, is to gather public input as well. These plans are not set in stone. The construction documents are not drawn. We're getting feedback daily from council members, from different economic groups, and from the public to help make the project better. And we're still listening to those. And the design is actually changing, as we can to make the project better based on those solutions, based on those suggestions. We spent a lot of time working with the planning department and staff. So the city has had a say in this plan through this entire process. And they continue to have a say and influence the design and the outcome of the project.
And your comments, I know Brenda mentioned that, we'll take your comments and we'll go through those, and then we could potentially address those comments in a future presentation. And when we talk to city council, we'll make sure that we've acknowledged those and had some comments and concerns if that's necessary.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the council will see your comments and questions tonight. This is a public meeting. We're taking notes. We're recording these meetings, so the council members are fully aware, and we'll be able to see and read all questions and comments from these meetings.
Great. We actually have a statement that I'm going to turn into a question. But it speaks about the council members, family members, and conflicts of interest. Can you speak to any kind of conflict of interest or ethics code? There was a perception that a council member family was representing you.
That is incorrect. from my understanding. That is not correct.
Okay. And then we're going to move on to traffic because we have a lot of questions on traffic. So hopefully the people who submitted their questions early on feel like we've answered many of those, but I do see a lot of freeway stuff. So I want to get to that. So Susie says, how can El Toro Road freeway access handle all of this traffic? There needs to be freeway access on Los Alisos too. And then Nareesh said, any studies being done on the flow of more traffic due to retail and 1,500 residents? And then we have Robin Yokums asking, will speed bumps or something else be used to address speeding safety along Cayo de la Luisa?
Well, I'll bite off as much of that as I can here and see if you can follow it. So Cayo de Luisa is actually part of our project area. And as such, we are including the redesign of Cayo de Luisa in our plan. It's going down from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road with parking on both sides, and with bike lanes as well. And so the redesign of Cayo de Luisa is turning really from a arterial to a collector road with landscaping. You see the diagonal parking. We have on the project side, there's parallel parking on the hospital side. And so Luisa, by the nature of its redesign, will slow traffic down. So we can't put speed bumps on roads like this due to the transportation center that's located at the southwest corner of our site and the buses that need to access Cayo de Luisa, but also emergency vehicles, hospitals, fire trucks. They won't allow us to add speed bumps to that roadway. I hope that answered that question. And that's also true of the site itself. The roads have been designed in consistence with the urban village specific plan that seeks to narrow roadways. They still carry large volumes of traffic, just at slower speeds. And so we have parking on the streets. We have a bifurcation at our main entrance. We've got planter islands down the middle of the streets. All of this designed to slow traffic down while still carrying high volumes. Speaking to traffic, the concept that there's going to be so much more traffic today than there was, it seems intuitive that there would be, but the challenge is the mall square footage generates, and retail shopping in general generates roughly 4 to 5 times the traffic or even more than office or residential. And I'll tell you why. Because as people come and go to a retail establishment like a mall, you'll turn over a parking stall maybe 8 to 10 times a day with people coming and going. With office buildings, they typically arrive in the morning, they leave in the evening. That's a trip. With residential, on the weekdays, people driving to their residence to work, and then they're coming home at the end of the day. We're also helping to capture a lot of the retail trips by having the residents here walking to the amenities that they need: cup of coffee, dry cleaner, out for a walk, retail shopping, those out to eat. Those trips are captured without people getting in their car. So as the retail is reduced from the former mall size of about 800 to 900,000 square feet down to 250,000 square feet, those retail trips, and again, 4 to 5 times the amount, once captured by the office and residential, are not a lot more trips that were actually there when the mall exists. And the infrastructure that's been built here was built to accommodate the trips of the former mall. In addition to that, the Urban Village Specific Plan has a trip budget associated with it. So, and by the way, the Urban Village extends past our boundaries. It includes property to the north, the hospital, to our south, that whole area. And development in the urban village itself is regulated by an amount of trips that the city themselves has determined that this area can handle. And so you can't go over the trip budget. We can't go over the trip budget in the Urban Village Specific Plan, and we don't. So our exhaustive traffic analysis that was prepared via our CEQA analysis that we're going through right now, that there is an exhaustive traffic analysis as a part of our project that's also available to the public. So if you're really interested in diving into the specifics, individual intersections, traffic volumes, et cetera, we're not going to go to that tonight, but just know that we're within the trip budget established by the Urbanville Specific Plan, and that traffic has been thoroughly vetted through the traffic analysis done under CEQA.
Great. And again, we're about 15 minutes to the close of the forum in respect to everyone's time. I'm going to move quickly through this. If you can hang with me on this. Susan Liu said, is the freeway project going to conflict with this project at all?
So there's two freeway projects. One is there's the current HOV expansion, which is on the I-5, which is currently being constructed now, and that will move forward. OCTA and Caltrans are looking at different options on how to expand the freeway. Obviously, they believe there's an issue on El Toro Road as you come south and getting on the I-5 going north. And they have some studies. We have been in contact with them, and they already looking at the project and how best to accommodate their needs.
I will say that based on their future plans, our project respects all of their future widening plans, and we've actually already had some of our land along Avenue La Carlotta taken by Caltrans, and our right-of-way line, the black line you see our property line today, respects the future takes that were expected by Caltrans. All the documents they have, our project respects those widenings. So our project today is not impacted by, it's been impacted because we've lost land, but the design of our current plan takes that into consideration.
And then we have some questions regarding parking, since we're kind of on the traffic and transportation questions. Jim Russo says that there are 1,500 units and you claim 1.5 to 1.7 parking spaces per unit. Here in Laguna Hills, we have a parking problem with the existing apartment that have the same parking limitations. How are you addressing that? And then we also have another question from Chris asking, are all the parking areas free of charge?
So we don't believe that we have a parking issue at the current ratio that we're providing, the 1.5 to 1.75. Fortunately for the community, these residential units aren't being built near residential neighborhoods such that people are going to have a problem, with other cars and guest parking in their neighborhoods. But we don't anticipate that happening. We fully believe that based on our experience with these size developments, this exact type program, that this parking is adequate. We also believe that with the connectivity to transit, its proximity to the freeway and the proximity to public transportation, and the increasing reliance on Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare services, that we think that the parking demand has been and will continue to decrease overall. Related to parking, the retail parking is not being charged for on this site. I can't speak to what I'm sure there's some parking fee or HOA or something that the individual residential, they probably pay for their spot. Or extra spots. I can't speak to that. But as far as the office and retail parking, that's not being charged for.
To the public, it's not being charged to the
Yeah,
public.
to the public.
So if there's an office and if there's an office tenant, we may charge them for parking, depending on their employees, but it's free of charge parking to the public.
Okay, so we have some questions regarding the residents, the residential areas and population. So I'm going to try to sum up a few of these appropriately. The entire population of Laguna Hills is 30,000 people. This means Merlot-Garra will control over 15% of the city population. How can you expect current city residents to support this level of control from your company? Also, there was a question about how do you address Laguna Hills residents' concerns that the entire population of the city is 30,000 and your development will mean that you will control 15% of the entire city's population. This seems to be a concern. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, and so, we'll talk briefly about, there's a state housing mandate that's coming down, and that, from from the governor. And so, you know, there's a few things here. Is one, we believe that the residential supporting this project, you know, makes it lively, makes it a place to be, makes it fun. Please understand that over, you know, this isn't going to be built overnight. This is going to, you know, building 1,500 residential units is going to happen over a 15-year period. As I mentioned, the state is mandating, you know, all cities in the state of California to figure out how they're going to have more housing for their, you know, their current constituents as well as, you know, future constituents. And we're, you know, working with the city, you know, we're trying to help with those numbers coming down from the state. But, you know, please note that the population isn't going to be 15% tomorrow, but it'll, you know, it'll evolve over time. And
Yeah, and I don't understand your question about control. You know, these buildings will be leased at market rate to whoever wants to live here, affordable component, and we don't see that as a control of a population.
So what type of commitment will you make for community services since you're proposing to increase the city's population by over 15%? For example, fire, police, schools. Again, more questions about population.
so with the increase of and getting, you know, making sure this is a positive fiscal impact to the city, you know, we've been working closely with the city of making sure that the plan that's that you're seeing in front of you is a positive impact. And with the TOT tax, the Quimby fees that I mentioned, sales tax, you know, the city's gonna, you know, the general plan will be positive moving forward. And I know the city has been looking at, you know, some of those fiscal impacts and making sure that, you know, we don't build a project that is not positive for the city moving forward.
Right, the city is conducting an independent economic analysis of the project, and that will demonstrate that the net fiscal impact of the project is positive to the city.
Great. And then you are very close to a huge senior community in Laguna Woods. What considerations have you made to relative to those 18,000 people?
So what we've heard mostly from that community is they want access to shopping. They want safe streets, safe environments, accessible, the connection to the street grid, not only down Health Center Drive and also through De La Plata there that connects the neighborhood as well as El Toro, that we're designing safe streets, slow speeds, and also amenities that provide walkability, not only for elderly to have ADA access, and amenities that allow for benches. We heard previously that, you know, the walking distance between place to stop and rest needs to be shorter here. And so we've addressed that in our plan, and how to accommodate shade factors is huge as well.
Transit drop-offs for some of the.
You'll notice it by the park. Here we have actually a transit drop-off. There's a bus that currently comes through the Laguna Hills for a bus stop and drop off for the shuttle that goes to Laguna. We are providing that same access and drop off here right at the park and near the shopping as well. So again, we've designed this in such a way to accommodate the needs of the city.
We are making great progress on these questions, so I'm going to keep us moving. I'm going to ask you a few questions that maybe you can quickly answer. I believe you already answered Chris Mack's question, but he did word it in a way that I'm not quite certain if it was answered appropriately. But Chris Mack is asking, what are you going to do with the freeway extension? I believe you answered that, but if you could speak to that. He's also wondering, in terms of retail, are you going to get stores that are lifestyle kind, cleaner, yoga, tutoring, massage? And then we have a question about asking if there's ATM machines available.
So,
sorry for bundling those, but thought you could hit those quickly.
One more time about the freeway extension. We fully accommodate Caltrans take for the freeway widening and extension. So yes, our product is accommodating that part. I'll let you talk to the retail uses.
To the retail, we will accommodate lifestyle uses. Depending on what type of fitness club we have, will determine how many different fitness users we can have in the center. But massage and salons and various services will be available.
Including banks and ATMs.
including banks. That's correct. And we will have ATMs at the property.
Great. I'm just going to keep on that train, Dennis, for you. There is expressing of interest for independent and innovative restaurants, not just chains. Are you addressing that?
Yes, we plan to. Absolutely. We'll consider all options and would like to have unique opportunities for our patrons and both branded as well as independent.
And by the way, we will, Dennis does a great job, especially on our NoHo project, to going out and looking at, some of those some of those restaurants that may want to expand, they want a second or third location, and we'll absolutely canvass the neighborhood for those.
Great. 2 quick questions on that. Deborah Hernandez is asking, will Marlone Geyer help new retail tenants expedite their licensing and permitting hurdles with local regulatory bodies? And then the other question is, will Ruby's Diner and Nordstrom Rack be staying?
Well, we expect Nordstrom Rack to stay. Ruby's Diner is to be determined. That's something we'll have to deal with them directly on. It kind of depends on whether they want to stay.
We've located them once, so we're definitely willing to work with the tenants to help them, in their goal if they want to stay.
And then, what was the second question? Or the first question?
Sorry, I went through and answered. Hold on. Ooh, sorry, when I push it over it.
Oh, will you help with tenants and their expediting or their
Yes.
permit process?
Thank you.
We always help. In fact, we've got an entire group here devoted to working with tenants and helping them with their within our design and construction department, helping tenants with their plans, with the permit process. We do the best we can to help our tenants get their plans to the process and open. It is an arduous process. Health department especially. These are difficult times, but yes, we are always at the ready to help our tenants get through the process.
Faster they open, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. And gentlemen, we are almost through all these questions. So if you would be willing to extend just 5 more minutes beyond the time, I think we can get through all of these. Will the hotel be branded or an independent?
Currently, we're talking to hotel groups, and even given where we're at, they're looking 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and so it could be independent or it could be a flag. We haven't determined that yet, but we are out talking to people.
Great. And then Robin Yokums is asking, would there be a way scenario that would accelerate phase 1 for Retail Village Park for completion sooner than November 2025?
We will do everything we can to expedite it. It's,
Well, I guess what we need to keep in mind is that we have a mall to demolish first. We have a lot of infrastructure that's got to get put into the ground, and that all comes after construction documents are prepared, the permit process takes place, and permits are issued. Then we start demolition, infrastructure, then we can start coming out of the ground. Those things take time. And if there's any way we can expedite this, we have no desire to sit on our hands here. We want to move this process forward to the extent that we can fast track permits, we will. It's really just working through the different bureaucracies that exist today to try to get these permits for this wholesale changes to the site. It's just a complex, difficult set of circumstances that we're gonna have to work through. And so that takes time.
and it's a big site, and
Yeah, it's 67 acres.
if we can expedite, like we said, if we can, push some demolition while we're getting building permits, we will do everything we can to expedite that.
Great. We are now officially hitting 45 questions answered. So congratulations, we're getting through these. What is the hotel occupancy anticipated?
So, we've on the plan have looked at, a hotel room anywhere between 100 and 150 rooms. It's all going to depend on the operator there. The reason why there's a little bit of leeway there is we've talked to some hotel operators that want to be on the smaller end, and we've talked to some that want to be on the higher end of that number. And on an occupancy, we probably think there's 80 to 85% occupancy at
In this location, sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay. So will each residential building have their own property management on site?
Unless they're owned by the same group that's operating, they might want to consolidate, but there will there will be a separate leasing and property management for each individual block. We can't speak to how the operator will ultimately potentially combine, but the way these buildings are designed, that each block has its own property management in the building.
Great. And then when you say affordable housing, what does that equate in actual cost to a resident?
So there's obviously thresholds that you have to meet in order to, you know, depending on your income levels. And so if you fit within, you know, the affordable housing component, you'll fill out an application and they will go through and deem you complete, and then they will and then you'll be able to rent out that space. What we do want to note on here is that every single space in every single building, I don't want to say will be the same, but there won't be one unit for an affordable person and one unit for a non-affordable person, because what we want to do is be able to move those residents around. So every finish in each of the units will you know be equivalent, so that someone who is an affordable unit is not getting a lesser quality type of finish moving forward.
Great. And then going on that, and I just want to let you know that we're now at 7:30. We're going to move 5 minutes past. Chris Mack is just asking, have you considered each residential building for certain groups, one for seniors, one for affordable low income, one for family? That way each have common interest. You started to speak to that. Can you kind of clarify?
So what we typically find is that what we don't want to do is alienate somebody that wants, you know, one affordable component, one senior component. We have looked at that. What we tend to find is that, you know, the residents, if you're an affordable person, we want the residents to, you know, not feel like they're alienated. And so, and I think they don't want to be alienated. And sometimes, you know, some of the seniors that no longer want to have a single family home, and they moved on and they want to be in an apartment here, they like the light, they like, you know, what's happening at the pool on a Saturday and the amenities there. So
well, that tends to happen too, is that the cluster of the different type of tenants will be around what amenities are available. We'll find that the families will want to be closer to the pool compound. There'll be different people that want to be closer to a quiet space. Certain people want to be, certain groups of people clustered towards what those amenities are. And that tend to be how the different units are distributed within a project.
Great. Okay. And then we have some minor questions here. Well, when do you expect to complete the project? You had mentioned that. Can you just kind of repeat that again?
So the goal is to build, you know, 140 to 170,000 feet of retail with a hotel in the beginning, with, you know, around 500 or so residential units. You know, the reason the residential, it takes time is there's just a lot of absorption. And so, you know, we feel it's, you know, it's going to take time in order for the entire project to be built out. So it could, you know, the second phase will be, you know, the remainder of the retail, the residential one, you know, facing El Toro, which, you know, we believe the retail there is going to, you know, hit it out of the ballpark. And so we're just, you know, it just going to take time and how fast you can absorb the residential units. And so, like we mentioned, it's probably somewhere between 10 to 15 years total all in. And that's with what Dave also mentioned, you know, construction documents and all that. So.
Okay. And then Robin Yocums has a final question. Will there be outdoor artwork incorporated, much like the 2016 plan?
The answer is yes. There will be a similar art program, as in fact it is a part of our application to incorporate art into the project at the same level as incorporated previously.
Great. And then go ahead.
No, and we're also working with the city about you know, some art programs not on site as well too. So.
Okay, great. And we just have 2 more questions, and we have a handful of people have stayed on, so I'm just going to throw this over to you. This is more of a comment, but I think you could probably address it. This is to both the city council and to you from Deborah Hernandez. Let's not spend another decade redesigning and redesigning. Let's get some development going. We have been missing the tax revenues of the mall. We are dragging down the value of our town by having dead malls at entry points of Laguna Hills for so many years. And there is one thing in demand, affordable housing, which this is me saying that you have spoken to that. We also are desperately in need of more families to move in and keep our school districts from shrinking. Laguna Hills needs to compete with Alicia Viejo. Can you speak to any of her concern?
We want to build this. We want to build this as soon as possible, and so we totally agree that we've been living with this site since 2013. Unfortunately, in 2017, 2018, we had to rethink the site, and that's where we're at today, and wanting to deliver something to the community moving forward.
A quality program here in a master plan development as quickly as possible, and starting with the center park and the main retail and the infrastructure to develop the rest of the project. That's phase one.
Great. And the final question, and that will bring us to answering 54 questions during this forum. So thank you to everyone who has been participating this evening. It's been a really robust dialogue back and forth on the Q&A. I hope that you got your answers that you needed for this one. And again, as a reminder, as we close out with this last question, if you have additional questions, feel free to go to village@lagunahills.com website to look at the redevelopment plans, as well as attend our next 2 virtual community forums on November 10th and December 9th. Spread the word. We are trying to get the community informed on this and would welcome their additional questions. So to the Merlone Geyer team, the last question is, what is the most exciting thing about this development?
Well, I'll answer first. I just think that designing a true village concept here that not only has opportunities to work, to live, to shop, and to stay in a hotel, to recreate as a community, to have all those amenities on one site, to have all those uses work together and into an integrated site here at the entrance and gateway to a community makes us just a wonderfully compelling site, and it's very exciting product to work on. And we're all excited about delivering a Class A product to the city of Laguna Hills.
And the residents of Laguna Hills as well.
And from a retail standpoint, bringing interesting concepts from a retail and restaurants and movie theaters and fitness, all of those options to bring that to the community right here at your front door, rather than having to go elsewhere to shop and dine, really creating a unique town center with all of that to offer.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for your time this evening. Thank you for your active participation, and we will maybe see you again at a future forum. Thank you and have a good evening.
Brenda.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Brenna.